ea na kanaka mai na kihi e ha o ke ia wahi honua nei o wau o tangaro and eia no mākou ma hilo nei, ma hilo Hawaii e, e, e hui ana me o ko ma luna o ke ia Zoom he o mo kaulele ka inoa o ke ia hui ana. I would like to welcome all of you from the different parts of our archipelago, as well as from the continent and perhaps beyond. My name is Taupuri Tangaro. I am with the University of Hawaii System. And Mo Kaulele, Indigenous Leadership Through Indigenous Arts, is a really vibrant coming together, sharing of stories, stories that they're true stories that are sometimes not published in books. There are stories that come through the individual, come through the families. And these are stories that are very, very inspirational. This is stories that that speaks to how families use art or the culture of art, materials art, to actually fuel indigenous advancement in this world of ours. It is also, we share the stories to also help our young community members to understand that to be a leader is to also know that the leader is in us. That the leader doesn't always come from the outside world into Hawaii. The leader is in us, and sometimes we just need the right stories to bring the leader out, or we need the right circumstances to bring the leader out and become very, very active. So we're very, very fortunate to have, and we say ʻOhana, our family, from what is known as Okinawa, but also the Inoa Maoli or Rikyu. And they'll be sharing their stories. We call them ʻOhana because we come from the same ocean. There's just one ocean. The ocean doesn't separate us. The ocean connects us. So we're family. And then we're even greater family. This even means more special to me because my granddaughter is part Rikyu from her father's side. So you know, it's like, yay, we're so excited. A few announcements. One of them is you have an option at the bottom of your screen. There's a translator option. So Ms. Reiko Hamano, who is a Hilo resident, is our translator, and she will you can option into listening to the Japanese discussion or the English discussion. And if I do jump into Hawaiian, then I'm hoping Reiko can do something about it.
I kind of will.
Okay, great. And then also, if you have questions related to their story or to the actual science of the textile, please put it in the chat so that we can keep a we can keep a record. And we would like to get get to your questions if time allows. Okay. Also, this is the translation is happening simultaneously. So if you see Reiko's face moving and you don't hear her, that's because she's interpreting what I'm saying. So if you're unfamiliar with this option of translation, you might it might take a little while because there might be a little delay as Reiko go in between the languages. So if you don't hear anything, don't get nervous. There's nothing wrong with your Zoom. Okay, just wait for a little while, and it will come up. Alrighty.
Okay, I will fade out my video. I will fade out.
Reiko,
so excuse me. Yeah.
Everybody, that's Reiko. That's Reiko Hamano.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Alrighty. We have the Taira ʻOhana with us. Taira ʻOhana, again from Rikyu, and they'll be sharing with us a particular materials culture that their family has continuously stewarded. And so we have 3 generations here. And what we want to know is, what is it that they do? What is bashofu? Why do they keep it alive? What are some of the concerns about bashofu? And how does bashofu represent the ideals or the values or the dreams of current day Okinawa? Okay. And they can jump in from any, if they answer those questions, great. And if they want to take it in another direction, we'll go with that too. But if I may please introduce now Taira, and she can introduce to us to your family. And then now, Mahalo Anui, please take it away.
Konnichiwa. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
I would like to introduce you my grandmother, my 100-year-old grandmother. Her name is Toshiko Taira. And my mother, Mieko Taira. And then my name is Nao Taira. I'm so honored to be here to explain to you about the Bashohu. So I look forward to you. First, I would like to introduce you to the explanation first. If you would please show the photo number 1. So there are basho family all over the world. It's one of them is banana. Banana is Ryukyu Ito Basho is the name. This is the original banana. And then the banana bark is taken out, as a fiber, and then made into a thread. And photo number 2, please. So there's about 24 process. There are more if you're going to be talking about dissecting of the process, but everything is done by hand. This is my grandma, Toshiko. Photo number 3, please. It's the bashohu has been said to be like a dragonfly's wings or cicada's wings, and it's very light, and so it's very appropriate for the very humid Okinawan weather. Photo number 4, please. From acquiring the raw material, the cultivation, getting the fiber and taking it out and weaving until the very end, everything is done by hand. And photo number 5, please. So from the 14th century, this has been passed on to Okinawa. And during the Ryukyu dynasty, it's about 400 years ago, it had been worn. The bashohu textile has been worn between all the classes, a royal family, descendants of samurai class, commoner, everyone, they were all wearing bashohu textile cloth. And there were ranks in bashohu, and there's the red, yellow, green. They were only allowed to be worn by the higher ranked people, the royal families. And even the ikat, the splashed pattern, they had also been divided into ranks. The bigger the design, the higher the ranking. Only the bigger prints were worn by higher ranked people, the upper class. Photo number 6, please. As you can see, the stripes and checks, they were allowed to be worn by the commoners.
This family in Okinawa that keeps a tradition of weaving that is no longer in existence. They are the last weavers.
屋上の無地の場所は
Well, so the highest quality textile were given and a plain and unfigured plain cloth. They were also given to the Tokugawa government and as from the Tokugawa government, and was offered. And so it had been the most identifiable and most representative of the Okinawa culture. That was bashohu. Photo 7, please. Okay, so this is my grandmother. And in order to create a good cloth, you have to have a good thread. And so in order to have a good thread, you have to cultivate a good plant. And so you start by cultivating a very good quality bashohu. And during that time, you have to cut off the leaves and then, stop the growth. And then you also have to watch out for the natural disasters such as, typhoon. And so you had various things to do during the year. Photo 8, please. So 1/3 of the bashohu making is really based on, the field work and ag work. And there's all the things that, dropped on the ground that are cut. Everything becomes a fertilizer for the land. So nothing is wasted. Okay, photo number 9, please. In Okinawa, we had various places where in regional methods of bashohu making. And what we are doing is the traditional style that is being passed down to the Ogimi-son Kijoka. And so that is the name of the region. And this is that is what's been passed on to our region, the Kijoka bashohu. Hi, photo 10, please. And most of the dyes are from the Okinawa area. And indigo, the Ryukyuai indigo, fukugi, the happiness tree, and the koa acacia trees, they're all our main resources for the dyes. And there's no chemical dyes are used. No, everything is organic, natural. And photo number 11, please. When you are going to be cooking the wara bark, everything is done by firewood. There's no gas used. And then we use the wood ashes, and then as the lye from the wood ashes. And then when we are going to be done with the ashes, we recycle that ash into the lye, and strew and scatter the lye in the farm, at the farm of bashohu. And number 12, please. So when we use that lye, the fiber thread, they all become alkalized. And so we use our own unique rice vinegar made from fermented rice called yunaji. There's so many convenient acid liquids, but we make our own to alkalize, and we don't use the citric acids and other easily purchasable acids. And weather, temperature, humidity, everything changes the fermentation environment. So everything is all learned through experience, and we all have to be organic about what to do at certain times. And because in the old days, there was no pH papers and there's no any gadgets, electric gadgets. So we had to feel it through our skin, taste it with our tongue, and to check on the fertilization process. And so there's no manuals, and everything is done through experience and knowing of what to do at certain times and certain timings. Photo number 12, please. Oh yeah, 12. And then now the next one, please. So the good thing about and the unique thing about the Kijoka Bashohu is that there's no one person that is involved in it. Everything is done by all collaboration of the whole village is what makes it possible for the Bashohu. And no age difference. Everyone does whatever that the age and then the person can do. And we continue to pass on that knowledge through that same process as we have from the old times to now. And there are people in the 20s all the way to 100-year-olds. And some people who cannot do weaving. We have old people helping making the thread. Maybe there's nothing like this that exists in the world right now. And even with the social network that is so rampant, there's so much individuality, but it's not really, that's not what Bashohu is all about. And everything is done. And this is such a precious and valuable part of what we do here, that there is no individuality. Everything is done by collaboration. Okay, next photo, please. So as you can see in the picture, this is how we did it in the old days, and nothing has changed. Would you change over to the camera, please? To us? Yes, thank you. So this is the leader for the Bashohu, for Kijoka, Taira Toshiko. Okay, this is my grandmother. She is currently 100 years old, but she's still working from Monday to Saturday, from morning 8 o'clock in the morning all the way till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She works. Right now, Umi is what she does in creating the thread, and she teaches, the younger generation. So when my grandmother was 94, she created the last product. She is woven the last product. In Okinawa, it's a cultural tradition that when one turns 97, there's the Kajimaya celebration. Kajimaya is like a pinwheel. And so the pinwheel was symbolic of that longevity. And this was made and created. And so that cloth was framed when it was done, and cut into it and framed like this. And we all passed it to all our relatives as a symbol of appreciation. And hopefully this will be also passed on with the knowledge. Her mother had also been the weaver of Bashohu. Her grandfather used to be the farmer who used to take care of the Bashohu field and managing. My father also used to be helping with all that taking care of the bashofu banana plants. We had also been spinning and the yarn and making the thread, even when we were in kindergarten. And we have been doing this as a daily process. And it's this scene is a very familiar scene since our childhood. And some of the people who had grandmas, tutus who've been doing the weaving retire, and then if they retire, they go into the position of creating the uumi, which is the making of the thread. And the tools that we have used in the past, nothing has changed. Everything is basically the same method and same tools that we use. And so nothing has changed over greatly. And so we all collaborate together to create this textile. During the World War II, and during and after, because there was just so much hardship in eating, finding even foods. At that time, the Kijoka Bashofu textile making had stopped. During that time, grandmother Toshiko was in Okayama Prefecture, Kurashiki town, and she had been working for at the manufacturing plant for creating fighter planes. And so she was lucky enough that she was able to meet people who were interested in the artwork and the weaving. And there was people who had kindly passed down the technology of the weaving style to the grandma. And so when she was ready to go back, those people who had been weaving said, please continue creating the Okinawa style dye weaving and keep on the tradition. And so when grandma came back to Kijoka, she has started to become more the Kijoka Bashohu creator. Some people are not muted. And so I hear someone's voice. If you could please mute yourselves. So yes, grandma came back to Kijoka, and after she came back to Kijoka, she started to get into passing down of this traditional way style seriously.
写真15をお願いします。
Okay, so photo number 15, please. So places where the banana plants are planted and grown, tools are made, the threads are made. It's not just one person that creates this process. And grandma had not the choice of quitting. It's such a hard work, but everything, everyone, they were all called in to work, through grandma. So she could not be the quitter. So she had to continue. But there were so many supporters who found her work worthwhile to continue. And sometimes, grandma said that, to her son, you're very important, but bashohu is also just as important too. So she's sometimes worked so hard that she wished that there were no nights, and that she could just continue to work. And so that's the kind of the hard work that required, but she persevered. So number 16, please. Next photo, please. So this is about 40 years ago when Grandma Toshiko had done a demonstration in Hawaii, and the bashohu cloth making was demonstrated. And so she had to stand on a kind of a stool because the thread became so long that she had to go up on to add extra height, so that the thread will not be touching the ground. Okay, next picture, please. In Kijoka, we had just created kimono only, but Grandma Toshiko had started to create other things with the banana cloth, bashohu. But these days, there are less and less people who wear kimono, the traditional adornment of Japanese. And so Grandma had created various items, crafts and things that are more pertaining to our daily lives. And so the cushion covers, obi, the belts, smaller things, tapestries, anything that she thought of, she started to employ creating them. Ideas would be spread out, and then all the women who were involved in supporting this bashohu making had taken on the endeavor to create those crafts. Okay, if you could bring us back to the camera again. Thank you. So the daughter-in-law, Mieko, so this is Mieko, in order to make the awareness and then the cultural value higher, she has done lots of effort in making that awareness. It is a lot of work to create it, of course, but it's also important to make people aware of how important and how hard it is to come by, the hardship and the beautiful things. Of course, there are various things in the world, beautiful things, cheap things, real things, but unless you give the information and what it is that makes them beautiful and so valuable, it's not enough unless you know those information. So that's what she had been making her efforts. Since the Ryukyu royal dynasty, various aristocrats, the samurai level, everyone had worn these, even the commoners. From the Edo period to the Edo, Tokyo, to China, it has been offered. There are so many people who have been involved from Okinawa, and it takes so much perseverance, so much handwork, and then it's just so much work for the people. And nowadays, there's so many that they don't even know the word bashofu. They don't even understand this cultural cloth. But everything is from Okinawa's nature. That's how bashofu is made. So this is essentially truly the representation of Okinawa's nature. And where the plants grow, the basho plants grow, it is truly the primitive scene of how Okinawa was before men came into the world. And so in order for us to protect how it can be passed on, that is still our task, and it's our homework to think about how it can be done. And please, next picture, photo number 18. Now, we would like to continue to do this, but it is a very difficult time to do this, along with everyone's efforts. It's great when we have the tutus around, but with the new generation, with this method that we have, the traditional method, in order to gather, to coordinate and collaborate, it is going to be a very, very challenging process. Number 19, please. Photo number 19. Even if it's difficult, with the history of Bashohu, I hope that even one person, if they have a chance to know more about this, I would like to support the efforts and continue for us to increase our efforts and passing on of this information to others. And as you grow the plant and take out the fiber and to create the thread, everything is hand processed. It is just so unthinkable right now in this time of day how much it takes to do this. But we have to continue so that we can really have them understand what nature is all about, and then the comfort of these organic material, how it feels, and how it is great to create a collaboration, a group, a community. And we would like to really do our efforts in creating that kind of an environment. The organic movement, the natural foods, and we are really concerned about the sustainability and the goodness of what we take in. But hopefully, as we go into more and more deeper into this organically aware, more aware time, we are going to be more concerned with what we put on our body as well. So hopefully that time will come. Next photo, please. So we would like to continue to do this. So this is the ocean of Kijoka. To protect the tradition, to continue the tradition, it's all about hard work. But the Kijoka's nature is always beautiful. It's so pure. I'm so blessed, to be in this blessed environment. And unless it's a clean, pure environment, the basho plants are not going to grow. So I would like to continue my effort in protecting these wonderful nature, beautiful surroundings and nature of Okinawa. And so that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Wow, wow. I took so much notes and put it all in this chat. And how are we doing on time? So we have a great amount of time. And so friends, if you have questions, begin putting it on the chat so we can get to them. But I want to revisit the comments that I made, or the excerpts I got, and interpret them into leadership for today. Okay, so if you can entertain that with me. Okay, right. Number one. Okay. What is very inspiring is that it is the village collaboration that makes it possible for Bashofu. All ages participate accordingly. And that whole idea of collaboration is getting, for some of our communities, that is getting more distant and more distant. America and sometimes a Eurocentric, modern Eurocentric attention places, they like to identify an individual as the master. But when we look at everything traditional, we find that it was villages, it was families that were recognized, and the individual had a contribution to a family outcome. So when we're looking at leadership, this is a great example of how leadership, you cannot have leadership without collaboration. You cannot have leadership without a community. And so Bashofu has become, for me, sort of a metaphor for community, leadership, all ages participating. And it's not about the one master. It's about community. And I think that is we need to hear that often, because there's a lot of attention in the Western world that's placed on individual or individuality. We don't want to lose the individuality, but we don't want to also lose the ability to work within community. And then I like the idea of the pinwheel motif and the ceremony that recognizes at age 97, it recognizes one's contribution to community. And that it's not just the contribution, but the hope that the knowledge is continued. And yes, so, you know, just the idea that maybe Tutu will not be making kimonos anymore, but through her work with the community, kimonos will be made because she decided to share the knowledge. And therefore the pinwheel, for us, whenever the wind blows, it's an image of the spirit, that the spirit is continuing. And so that's a great, you know, as hula people, we're hula, many of us are hula dancers. It's the same thing. It's very similar. At one point in our life, we cannot dance anymore physically. But have we taught enough people the culture of dance, not just choreography, but the culture of hula, so that it can continue? And so this is something that's it echoes very well with many of us here in this group today. I like that you said even kindergartens participate in daily manufacture. That is now sound that's one of your childhood memories. Is it wasn't something you learned from school. It wasn't something that you went to America or to Japan to learn. It was something that was happening in the family. And that's very fortunate. Some of us, our families, for whatever reason, left a practice, so we have to get inspired by other people in the community, or sometimes we have to go far away to be reminded of a value that we have the abilities to recover and keep healthy. And I also really appreciate the fact that at one time Bashofu, because of the political climate of Okinawa, that Bashofu, the practice, went to sleep. And it was the community that looked at Tutu and says, Tutu, please keep it alive. We need it. So she went back home and she began to keep it alive, which meant bringing the community together. I sometimes think, what if she decided not to keep it alive? How would that have affected the spirit of community? If she decided, no, I'm going to just work in the city and I'm not going to go home, and I'm just going to be a modern person, and you know, what would have happened? And I think this is a reminder, a good reminder, a sobering reminder to many of us, that sometimes we're left with knowledge, we're left with an opportunity, and we have to make the best decision. Are we going to are we going to grow the opportunity? Are we going to share it, or are we going to just leave it behind? So that when our pinwheel ceremony comes along, we don't want to have regrets. We want to know that we can control we can contribute, or we can decide not to, and the decision has to be made. And so that was, you know, whenever I'm looking at a pinwheel, it's going to remind me, am I leaving enough? Am I Am I growing community through the things that I do? Okay. I like the fact that we talked about what are we wearing, you know, because what we wear, because our skin is permeable, what we wear will affect the marrow. Eventually, it will affect the marrow in our bones. So just the idea that bashofu is conducive to the climate of Okinawa. It's indigenous, it's the nature of Okinawa, it's the culture. To wear bashofu is to wear the community. So you know, that is that is something to consider. Many of us similarly, we have our traditional fabric is woke. It's mulberry. And there was a time when we didn't need it. We started wearing foreign cloth because it was fashionable, it was easy to get, and it was easy to take care of. But we found that in some of our ceremonies or some of the things that we have to do, we cannot wear foreign clothing. We have to wear our indigenous clothing. If we are to wake up our indigenous memories, sometimes we have to wear our indigenous clothing to assist in that. So we were able to really relate to that. Brilliant. The fact that people may not be wearing bashofu, the kimono, like they did in the past. So what do we do now? So grandma and her community has created smaller pieces to keep the story of bashofu alive. And I like the fact that Mieko-san, Mama-san, her job is to keep the story, the history, the process, together with the outcome. Because sometimes if people only get the material and they don't know the history, they miss out on what's beautiful about it. The power of bashofu is in the story, the history, the evolution. And so even with us like hula, when we pass hula on, sometimes if we just give the choreography, the student one day may say, I don't need that choreography. And then the choreography goes to sleep or it dies. But when we attach all the stories, if the song is 200 years old and we attach 200 years of stories to it, then we have every reason to keep the song alive, more reason, because it's not just about the choreography and looking pretty. With the song comes the mana, the story, the advancement and the struggles and the evolution of the families that kept it alive. So, you know, sometimes people just want to know, how much does it cost? Can I buy it? But that's material. It's all the immaterial value that come with it. That really, you cannot put a money value on it because it's the memory of ancestors in a modern world. We can't sell that. That cannot have a price. So, you know, just the innovation, you know, I'm looking at the necktie, I'm like, or the bow, I'm like, oh, I could wear that, you know? And even though it's not a full kimono, but in the little bow is the history. Whenever I wear it, I remember the history and I remind myself to support nature. Because if nature is sick, the basho will be sick, the kimono will be sick, and if you wear it, eventually we will become sick. So that is all represented in a little necktie or in a little handbag, in a little coin purse. I don't need to have a full regalia to help support Okinawa, as well as help support our own similar stories. I love that you say bashofu is from Okinawa's nature. So to hold bashofu is to hold Okinawa. To support bashofu is to support Okinawa. It's a reminder, a great sobering reminder to all of us that it's not enough just to go to the artifact. It's the story that comes with it that is where the value is. I like that you're already beginning to think about modern communities and how is Bashofu going to live within the context of modernity. That is, we're always concerned about that as hula people, because our hula attaches us to our ancestors. So when we transition the knowledge from one generation to the other generation, we're always worried, are our students going to take good care of the hula and the culture of hula? Are students going to be able to make better lives for themselves and their community because they kept hula healthy? And so those are very sobering questions. The idea that it's unthinkable to gauge how technical bashofu is just to make. And the idea of tasting, the taste have a place, a way of measuring the acid, acidity, the trees, the soil, everything is your whole universe is in what you're doing. And if we affect one feature of that universe, we affect the whole. So you see, this knowledge system is what we need to bring to this greater world that seems to be addicted to the decimation of nature. It seems that's the easiest thing, just decimate it. But, so this indigenous knowledge, and you're sharing it through your textile, we have similarity, and everybody has a story. Everybody has a reason. Everybody has an ability to contribute to the well-being of this world. But like Mieko, sang your mama, we have to put a lot of effort into keeping the stories relevant. So it's not about just wearing kimono anymore. It's about keeping Okinawa alive and relevant and forward. So we're not losing, a people and their story. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share with you, because what I didn't want is our audience to just hear a story and not begin to interpret it in ways that they can use. So that's the value. Sometimes we want to listen to people's stories, but we don't take it the next step. How is that story similar to ours? And therefore, what are we going to do? When we turn 97 years old and we have the pinwheel ceremony, are we going to look back and feel like we've given everything to our community, or are we going to have regrets? So every day we have an opportunity, and every day, and as I'm watching Tutu, she's going forward and forward with that. So that reminds us we got to move forward. There is some questions in the chat, and so Noel, can you lead that discussion, please? I have one question here. It says, are designs specific to families?
Most of the patterns have been designed by the weavers who were the royalties' own patron sort of artisans. They had created those patterns, and they have them, a resource. And we have the kasuri, the splashed patterns. We have about 1500 years ago, we have started to resource them. And so it's not passed on, but most of the people who are using in this region, it is not in the family, but it's a regionally most popular and regionally used and repeatedly, used patterns. So not really pertaining to an individual family or tradition, but it's all from resources back in the days of 1500. And then it's shared, and then it's regional and used as resources and repeated. Mm-hmm.
Another question. Which part of the tree, the banana tree, do you take the thread of bashofu from?
Okay, so it is really the where the connection of the leaf is to the bark. So that is where the fiber is used. So if you can see closely to the first picture, it's where the leaf, and then there's the branch. So the branch is connected to the bark. And so that area, that branch area, is where it becomes the thread, the fibrous part.
Okay, thank you. There's another question. Are bashofu designs similar to designs found in hand tattoo of Rikyu?
The tattoo pattern is absolutely not used. It's totally separate.
Okay. Let me see if you have any more questions.
Oh, actually, we would like to say something
Sure.
from our side, if it's okay.
Please.
When at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., there's 1800 bashohu was gifted, and it was exchanged as an offering at the end of the 18th century. And so it's supposed to be there at the Smithsonian.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping that that is going to be exhibited. I have seen it myself, but I'm hoping that one of these days that it is going to be publicly exhibited so that people will be able to have a chance to see them. Yes, so I asked, oh, so you have seen it with your own eyes? Then yes, Mom Mieko said that yes, she had the chance to actually see the actual, bashohu cloth. And it was a black color, and then 285 grams. It is the most exquisite type of the high-end, high-quality bashohu. So right now, currently, it's about $500 to 550 grams. That is the current one, kimono. The old one in the past had been 300 grams in the past that I have seen, but this particular one that was black was 285 grams, which tells me that this was really one of the most exquisite quality bashohu. And so it was amazing.
We have a
そんな
question.
極上のものがずっと眠ってるのがもったいないなっていう感想です。
So basically, our thoughts are that is that, you know, something that is just so exquisite and so rare, it is just being reserved inside the you know, the warehouse or preserved and not being displayed and shared, you know, being absorbed. So, and Toshiko, Grandma Toshiko says that most likely that was woven at Shuri Castle, Shurijo, which is the Ryukyu Dynasty castle, which unfortunately burned down like 2 years ago or a year ago. But so most likely Grandma says that it was woven there, you know, by the royalties.
So do we, what is it going to take to have that quality of bashofu come manufactured again? Or do you think it's that quality is of the past?
Unfortunately, the changes in weather, the knowledge of not having the information of when people started harvesting, we are not able to fully recur the quality of what people in the past have created. We unfortunately do not have that information, not enough information. So yeah.
There is a question: is the cord of bashofu used in any ceremonies related to the family? They reference childbirth or childcare.
紐っていうのが、こういう糸のことじゃなくて何か紐。
Oh, you mean the thread or like
Thread.
a cord? Thread.
Or and is it used other than clothing? Is it used in any rituals of the family or community? You know, elements of it, the thread or the cord or the banana itself. Is it used in ceremony?
Other than making cloth, there is paper making and the lion dancing, the decoration. It can also be made into a string, whatever that can be made from the itobasho, you know, the basho plant, of specifically from here. So there are various ways that we can use them, but we don't really associate it to any specific sort of rituals, but we do use it in various sort of ways. You know, it becomes various forms. In other words.
Okay. You did speak to the regionality of what you're doing. And the question here is, can children in Okinawa, perhaps from outside of your region, can they access and learn from you your culture of your region's culture of bashofu? Can other people outside of your region access the knowledge and contribute to the life of bashofu?
There are occasions that we accept school huakai, and there are people, regions where they have the lion dance, and we allow kids and people to experience hair making, the lion hair making, the mane of the lion making. The children here in Ogimi-son, they create their own basho paper, to create the certificate, you know, in graduation from school. They create their own and use that as receiving their own certificate written on that. And so there are various ways that they get to experience. So school, you know, regional sort of regionality and having the same lion dance, and also our own kids, you know, make their sort of the cloth, tapa, you know, kappa cloth from the basho plant.
We have one of our guests says, we have bashofu among my deceased mother's belongings. What is the way to care for it?
It is not recommended to keep it in a dry and cold places, like such as, you know, in an air-conditioned room is not good for the cloth. And also to not keep it folded for a long time. So maybe once a year, if you could unfold it and then have it, you know, touch air and put it out in the air. Otherwise, if it's kept unfolded, kept in the folded condition, the fiber will snap, and then it will cause it to, you know, break from those areas. And so it's highly recommended that you air it out once a year, at least once a year, and keep it not folded, and keep it out of cold and air-conditioned rooms.
Do you wear it traditionally? Is it worn all year round? Is there a different weave for summer and winter?
Yes, in Okinawa for sure. Maybe in Tokyo, it's probably not because it's too dry. And so it's not recommended to wear it all year round. But maybe in Hawaii, it's okay. But if it's a dry area, not recommended.
We have one question here. How many other regions in Okinawa are continuing or doing similar with bashofu?
Unfortunately, there's maybe like one or two people, individually, that's all we hear. There's some individual sort of artists, that does this process, the processes, on their own as an artist for bashohu, but as a community, there's none.
Okay.
Maybe there's one or two people who do that, but there's no other regions that does this.
I like that I like that definition, that the artist is the person in the Western sense, is independent, worker, just advances. But then there's the as it relates to you, it is a community effect. So, or is a community outcome. So is it community or is it an individual? And there is a difference. Yeah, so there's a value there that is added. Thank you for sharing that. Government support and recognition. Is there any government recognition and support for your lifestyle?
Kijoka Bashohu has been designated as the national treasure. So we have a endorsement, for having an alakai, creating an alakai system. So we have support, from them, the government, fortunately, because it has been designated as a national treasure.
We're coming to a close. So if any of you have any last minute questions you might want to add in, what is your dream? What do you see in the future? What role will Bashofu play in the future of Okinawa? Your ideal dream.
We are one of the only region that creates the bashohu. And it was for the same bashohu that has been offered to the Tokugawa, government. So we really want to explain this and introduce this, that we have this tradition that's been same, for that long, and food. We want people to understand what we do, and we want to increase that population. We would love to have more learners and people who are interested in, what we do, and to learn and understand about our sort of regional, treasure. So that's what we hope would happen, to introduce it to the wider world.
We do actually have in our guest list, we have a person who works at the Bishop Museum that's listening to this. I wonder if he's still on. Hanale, aya o ilela. Imau leo
Hi.
Payalako. So I have we have a friend who works at the Bishop Museum, and he also works with traditional textiles, the research of it, the education of it, the learning of it, its innovations of it. And I asked him to share some words of encouragement with you. Ohanale kona inoa.
Aloha. Thank you so much for your presentation. Just seeing all three of you in this presentation is just so heartwarming to know that it's been passed down through generations and will continue to be passed down. Bishop Museum has a lot of things that we care for from Hawaii and across the Pacific, and we do have a few pieces of material culture from Okinawa. We haven't had the opportunity to really exhibit those materials, but definitely the opportunity is there. I know there's a couple of, I see someone else that's also listening in, a good friend of mine who has training in dance and has a collection of kimono as well here in Hawaii, that we both have talked about different possibilities on how things could be exhibited and shared with our community here in Hawaii and across the Pacific. So definitely it's an opportunity that we can have further conversations with. Mahalo.
Yes, mahalo anui. Again, we're coming.
Mahalo.
Aloha. Did I hear anyone? Okay. So we're coming to a close, and again, so what are we going to do with your story? Why did we ask for your story, for you to share your story? In Hawaii, we have this tradition: if we ask for something, we have to do something about it. And so, why did we ask to learn of your story? One, we wanted to know that our stories are not isolated stories, that our cousins across the world may have similar stories. Two, how do we keep our identity, our practices that keep the identity, our identity, how do we keep them relevant in this world? How do we make it, position it such that our children are going to want to live within this identity? So that's a question we learn. We want to know that, and I think what was most touching is when I reached 97 years old and I look back, how can I use the story of the Taira ʻOhana as an inspiration of making good decisions, not just selfish personal decisions, but community decisions. That is inspiring. We have a number of students in the university system that sometimes they're very isolated because they have to learn so many different things that sometimes don't have any meaning to themselves. So how do these stories, regional stories, family stories, indigenous stories, how can they help make stronger students? Because as Mieko is contributing to this, is not just the material, but you have to have the knowledge and the history, and they have to accompany each other, because the story and the history is what provides the value in the fabric itself. So how do we make sure that we're not just pushing an artifact forward, but the artifact can actually become a learning tool for self-determination? Every one of us on this platform, and we have like 48 people, we had up to 58 people, we all listen to this story, and every day we all have the same 24 hours in the day. Every day we have an opportunity to keep something alive, keep something that we've inherited alive. Every day we have something to contribute to the well-being of family and community. And so what are we going to do with your story? We're going to allow your story to sit deep in us, to remind us about the little echoes in our head that sometimes we forget, that we have an opportunity to strengthen the human spirit, to strengthen the bonds across the ocean, support each other. And so for those, and then also, how can your story help us be better community people, be a better mother, a better father, a better grandparent, a better grandchild? So your stories really help us to remember our own stories. In Hawaii, we have our traditional fabric. We have a number of traditional fabrics, and we have a lot of woven things too. But one of our fabrics that we had to recover, and I'm not sure if we can still make it, when we look at the museum pieces, the quality was so different. And so we're striving, that becomes the benchmark to strive toward that. And we call it kappa, or the finished product is called kappa. The material itself, the fiber, is called vauke. We have a gift for you, for your family. Not only just for you three, but the ancestors, to the ancestors that kept this knowledge going. We planted vauke in your name, in the name of your family, in the name of your community dreams. And as a way of saying thank you, we want this vauke to grow, and so that our children can make cloth, and they can wear their indigenous cloth in very special moments, in celebration and in parallel to what you do. So can we have that video? Again, in your honor. So that was a little quick. I don't know if Reiko got all the words translated, but we'll send you that.
I did a little bit.
Oh, you did. Okay. And but do know that the roots that will make this grow is symbolic of our roots that connect us. And so and then I've been watching Tutu just putting together she's done so much in this very short time. She's just so inspiring. But to Tutu Taira, we want to say mahalo a nui loa. To Mama Mieko Taira-san, we want to say thank you for keeping that story alive. To Nau Taira, You are the new generation, so you have a lot of work ahead of you. But I like that you said your goal is to increase bashofu. And so with that said, we pray for your dreams. Thank you very, very much. Long life to all that we do. And thank you for your inspirational story. Okay. Mahalo nui. Bye-bye.
ありがとうございました。
Okay. Alrighty. To our guests, we see you this coming Thursday at 4 to 5. We'll be looking into the story of the indigenous language of Rikyu that will be shared with us. Again, this is this coming Thursday, and 4 to 5 Hawaii Standard Time. And today we look at the Bashofu, the indigenous through the fiber. Now we want to look at the indigenous Rikyu through their language and the strides that they're making to keep their language healthy and alive. So thank you again for our Okinawa cousins for sharing. And we hope there's an opportunity we can share. I would love to be in Okinawa and I could dance for you. I love to dance. So I would love to dance for all of you. And I don't know, maybe Hanale Marzan, I can inspire him to come along too, so we can come and both dance and chant for you. Thank you. May your knowledge live on forever. Good night.
Thank you.
Reiko-san, thank you.
ありがとうございます。
Mahalo, mahalo nui loa. Thank you so much for this
Okay.
opportunity. I was so honored.
Yeah. So again, Reiko-san, can you
ありが
ask?
とうございます。